From Super League to Olympic distance to age group world records to Kona. Go longer with the right fuel at the right time with SFuels.
It's Aloha Monday, gonna swim, bike, and run all day. What? Cause it's breakfast with Bob. Chee-hoo.
That's Poncho Man, everybody. Welcome to our 11th year of Breakfast with Bob from beautiful Huggles on the Rocks. My name is Bob Babb. We're brought to you by Master Spas SFuels Go Longer, HOKA Let's Fly, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Quintanaroo, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, and our Challenge Athletes Foundation. This young man went sub 7 hours. 53:24 bike, 53:24 swim, 3:16:42 bike, 2:36:43 marathon, 6:47:36. Give it up for the one, the only, Mr. Joe Skipper. How you doing, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Great to be back on the show, Bob. Thanks for having me.
You know what? I don't think we've got to chat in person since, was it here, 2019?
Yeah, it would have been Kona 2019. Obviously, COVID stopped everything in 2020, and I haven't managed to get out to any of the events that you've been at since then. So, yeah, 3 years.
I thought it was my breath or something. You're like staying away from it.
No, nothing like that.
Okay. Hey, so with that, with the sub 7, talk a little bit about just the logistics of putting all that together. That had to be crazy.
To be honest, I've got Alistair to thank for that, doing all the legwork. Yeah, and then unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to take part. So I got called in like 8 days beforehand. They said that he's out, he's injured. Did I want to do it? And I was a bit like, you know, I had COVID in April, missed St George in May, and then had another illness. So I was kind of on the road back, and at that time I was building up really for pretty much the end of the season, Kona and the other races, because I thought, I was getting married at the start of July, so I was like, well, I've had all these illnesses, I'm going to miss some stuff with getting married. So it was a bit of a shock to be asked that in May when I hadn't done a massive amount of training, but I knew it would be a great experience, and I thought if I was watching someone else do it, I would have really kind of regretted it. So it was, but the whole week leading into it was awesome. Like we had a great team. Like Dan Bigham is really good at the aerodynamics and the technical side. So he was kind of working out pacing strategies and running numbers through spreadsheets and doing all, the science. Yeah. And we had Jacob Tipper and Gordon Benson who were like managing everything, taking people back and forth and like sorting out drink bottles, the night before all your nutrition would be taken care of. And then we had Alex Dowsett on the team. So his experience with riding in a World Tour cycling team was really beneficial. He could talk about like what they do in the team, and everything filters through. So we had a whole wealth of knowledge, and the whole team aspect of it was amazing.
So having Alistair Brownlee as someone who's a domestique for you, this is a guy's two-time Olympic gold medalist. That had to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty tough for me though in the swim, because we're kind of like polar opposites in the swim, aren't we? He's right out the front of the swim, and I'm kind of struggling on there. So trying to stay on his feet was pretty tough. It was a bit surgy. Like every time I got on his feet, I'd tap it. And I was tapping it to try and get as close as I could to him, and I think he was tapping it because he wanted me to go a bit quicker, so he'd go a bit quicker, and I'd be like, oh, God, here we go again. Like,
so you're basically surging for 2.4 miles. I was surging,
I was getting dropped, and then I was getting back, and then I was getting dropped, and I was thinking, I can't wait to get on that bike.
And so when you get on the bike, that's a lot of intensity. It's like a lot of times you get on the bike, you can sort of relax a little bit. When you got all these guys around, you can't relax for a second.
Mate, the bike was flat out, and we recce'd the course. It was really interesting, actually, because the 2 days before, I went with Dowsett and Bigham, and we went in the car, and we had a little look, because the first 16 to 18 Ks was a bit more technical, had some corners, and we'd park up the van in the corner, and they would look at it, and they'd go, yeah, that one's flat out on the TT bars. I'm thinking, all right. And then we'd go to another one, they'd go, yeah, I think the first 3 people will get through that one flat out on the TT bars. The other guys might have to go on the, on the base bar, and we just look at all the corners, and they reckon, yeah, I reckon we'll take a minute and a half out of the other team on the first 16K. It's a minute and a half and 16K, because obviously you've got 5 people. The speeds are so high, to go from like 52 Ks an hour to like 55, 56 is like a huge amount of extra power. But yeah, it was really interesting. The wrecking the course like that, really taking an in-depth look at the corners and how fast you could go. And yeah, we took a minute and a half out of them in the first 16K. You ended up doing it? Yeah, it was like flat out, mate. Like, I think the first 16K we did in 16 minutes, something like that. You just like on the wheel. I was looking down 61, 62 k's an hour on the straights, like, thinking like, well, I've got 3 hours of this.
Now it's 2 hours and 59 seconds.
Yeah. It was crazy. Like,
and the hard part is it's one of those things where it's just you and one other guy, so you're either first or you're last.
Yeah, the hard bit on the back for me was, like, we'd been practicing, like, strategy and stuff, and to be honest, I knew with how my fitness was in that, I just said to the boys, look, you need to go as fast as you can, don't worry about me, I'll hopefully be okay and be able to run well, but I knew my only chance of beating Christian, how my fitness was at that point, was to get the biggest buffer I could on the bike, and just hope for the best, and hopefully put them under pressure by taking the lead, and then getting the gap going up, and hoping that their riders would ride harder than what they wanted to, and then that would cause them to like miss turns, and then ultimately they'd end up going slower and losing time. It didn't work out like that, but we knew that was the best strategy that I had to play, to do that at the time.
But, and it was 3 minutes, right? He went 6:44, you go 6:47.
Yeah, 3 minutes, and to be honest, that was the best I could have probably hoped for,
big time.
With how my fitness was back then.
What did you gain from that's helped you in your regular racing? Because there's, like you said, you got all these really bright people talking about aerodynamics and cornering, and did you gain something from that helped you in other races?
Yeah, like looking at the corners a lot more. Course recce's, I'd say, is a massive thing. The nutrition aspect of it, getting that really organised, and then I would say probably keeping cool as well, like on the run, makes a massive difference, because you were allowed to have someone like support you on the run, and cool you down. I had a friend who's now got the nickname Weed Killer Man. Because
what's he called?
He's called Weed Killer Man.
Okay.
Because Alistair's idea was to get a weed killer bucket that we'd fill with ice cubes and freezing cold water, and the Weed Killer Man would ride behind me, and he'd spray you with like a weed killer thing, which would just do like a real misty, freezing cold air. So and that made a massive difference. It was a hot day, and keeping cool all the time made a huge difference. So you really noticed it in something like that. But mainly just like a little bit of everything. There's not one individual thing that would make a massive difference, but it's looking at everything, because those boys really wanted to do like the best they could, and they wanted to ride as fast as possible. So they were looking at every detail. I mean, like, for instance, we knew that we wanted to ride 320, for the bike or quicker. So they were doing a lot of aero testing in the week beforehand. So Dan would get people to ride a lap, and like we'd work out what their CDAs were, and then we knew what power people had to ride at to hold 55 k's an hour.
Yes.
So it wasn't about like you do 2 minutes or 3 minutes and hold that power. It was like, you need to hold this power because that's the speed we want to do. And it was looking at what their CDAs were, what their threshold powers were, and working out what people are capable of, because roughly it was like, I think it was like 7 3-minute turns by everyone on the team. And that was like the 3 hours 15. Yep. So you had to do basically 3 minutes at 450 watts, roughly, give or take, depending on what your CDA was, to hold 55 k's an hour.
Yeah.
That was what it worked out to.
So when I look at your history here, right, 7th and 18, and then in 19, you were 6th, and then both you and Ben Hoffman go down to Florida, right after this thing, and had just a few weeks later, and I think you ran 2:39 to win the thing, but it was like 2 races very close together. Have you found that actually works well for you?
Yeah, it has worked pretty well in the past, to be fair. Like 3-4 weeks,
yes,
maybe 5 weeks tops is pretty good. Like any longer, and it depends on how you recover from the first one. Ideally, I think the ideal situation is 3 weeks.
3 weeks,
but
okay.
Yeah, because then it's not about trying to fit in a lot more training. It's like you do the taper for the first one, and then you have 5-6 days of recovery afterwards. You can get a little 6-day, 7-day block of training, and then you taper into the other one. And because you've actually had quite a lot of like tapering and recovering from races, you're actually pretty fresh. Although the Ironman's one big day, you might have tapered for 7 days into the first one, then you've recovered well. You do a little bit of training to tick over, and the training's quite easy because generally you feel pretty fresh, and you've got to listen to your body a lot, because you've just done Ironman. It's not like if you feel tired, it's not like you're forcing it. You just take it a bit easier. So you tick over, go into the second one, you generally feel really good. And I think the Ironman, if you can recover from it and you don't have a massive amount of time in, you get a lot of fitness from it. It's a really hard 8-hour day. It's like flat out for 8 hours. So Yeah, I think for me it seems to work quite well, to be fair.
Well, and so how long ago was Wales?
I think it's about 4 weeks from Wales to when Kona was. But I had unfinished business, to be honest, at Wales. Like, you know, I got disqualified in 2019.
What'd you get disqualified for?
Like, I had a puncher and stuff, and some mechanicals, and which seems like a bit of a trend with that race, to be honest. And then I was a bit annoyed, and I could see a little number flapping, and it just really wound me up. And I got it, and I threw it, and then a marshal was there, and I got disqualified. But totally my own fault, you know. I shouldn't have done it, but. You know, but I had unfinished business. You know, I was it wouldn't have mattered. I would have finished. I would think I would have been 6th place if I hadn't have been. But I knew it was a course that suited me, and the atmosphere was incredible. It was easy to get to, so I knew I had to go back there at some point and do it. And because I'd missed a lot of the season this year, I just really wanted to get a race in, really, and also to test my fitness. You know, because it was a bit of an unknown. You know, I'd raced in June. Then after that, since then, I hadn't actually raced, and my training had gone well. But I think if I hadn't have raced Wales, I wouldn't really know what to expect coming into Kona, and I'd have been a bit uncertain. I'd have thought, well, my training's gone well, but I don't really know what that translates to. I don't know if I'm capable of like top 10, top 5, you know. I haven't raced against any of the other guys. There's a lot of new guys that have come up in the sport, you know, that have been racing the PTO races.
Yes.
They raced St. George and like obviously had some really good races there, but I hadn't raced against any of them in a full distance, so I wouldn't have known how I would have compared or what to expect. So mentally it's been really good doing Wales because it's kind of like showing me where my form is and what I can expect on race day.
Well, and I think we're at a point now where you sort of have to run 235, 236, 237 to win a race like this. And running 237 at Wales, which is certainly not an easy, that's a tough run course, that has to give you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, it definitely gives me a lot of confidence. And I knew my running was going well and my cycling was going well. For me, the only thing for me going into this race is how I do with the heat. You know, I know the fitness is there, the form's there. The only thing is, can I cope with the heat and execute a decent marathon, you know?
Right.
So I've been doing everything I can to get used to the heat, doing like heat prep and everything to give myself the best possible chance, but that is the unknown, you know, because if you look back at past races, what I've done in Kona, 2018, 2019, even before that, 2015, I haven't actually broke 250 on the marathon, you know?
Right.
So it's all well and good running 237, 238s in the normal course, but it's like, can you do it on the heat at Kona? And like, the only positive I've got is last time when I raced Wales and I raced Kona, I ran exactly the same time in Kona as what I did in Wales, so that's quite confidence booster. But, you know, I feel like I'm coping with the heat a lot better, but, you know, I know that when you get off that bike, it's a different ball game, you know, after pushing it for 180k.
Well, and this, I think it's going to get pushed by a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of guys getting out of the water together and going for it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I hope, to be honest, it is a hard bike, you know. I hope it's windy and I hope it splits up a lot because it will suit me a lot more if it's a lot more of a challenging bike course. I think the courses where the times in Kona where it suits the smaller guys and when it's not very windy, because it's a lot easier to sit in, especially if there's no wind. Like, I've done quite a few rides now on the Queen K with a friend, and when it's like not windy, you can sit in and you can save a hell of a lot of power. Whereas actually when the crosswinds are blowing, to sit in, even if someone's on your wheel, they're putting out almost the same power as what you are. So for me, it'd be perfect if it's windy, break the front group up, wouldn't make the swimmers like important, you know, because obviously you don't want people to get a free ride, you know.
Right.
Like, for instance, like, I mean, someone like Patrick, who can run really well here, if he can get out in the front group of 5, say, and it's not a windy day and he can save his energy, you might catch Patrick at some point, but he might have saved a lot of energy, you know, if he got out at the front. And then it's like, how will he run off that? Do you want to take your chances, run at the same time with him? And have you got enough time to build up a buffer before the run? You know, it could be a lot of things like that. Whereas if it's windy and it breaks it up and everyone's in 1s and 2s on the Queen K, everyone's riding hard. And it's a different ball game getting off the bike when you've rode hard in the heat for 4.5 hours than it is as opposed to being able to have a bit of a free ride for a few hours, you know, 2-3 hours or even the whole thing.
What would it mean to you to win this?
Oh, it'd be incredible, yeah. It'd be like, be amazing.
Be a great capper to go on your, you know, go in the sub-7 and win in Wales and then bookending it with a win here at the Ironman World Championship.
It'd be unbelievable, yeah. It'd be like a fairy tale, wouldn't it, you know?
I'd love to see it.
Cheers, mate.
Hey, how about a round for Joe Skipper? That is day 4 of Breakfast with Bob. Poncho Man, take us out.
It's Aloha Monday, gonna swim and bike running all day. And it's Breakfast with Bob. Chee-hoo.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. We do have our merchandise back there, too. We like that. Joey, you're the best.